Hello, I'm Grant from Maker's Vlog and Power. Now, I've had a lot of videos where I've talked about free energy and all that good stuff. If anyone who knows me, they know that I quite like clean energy. So solar powers, wind turbines, all that good stuff. Now, the argument could be made that a wind turbine is still technically solar, but it's a whole other topic. And I have a project. Either it'll be out already, you'll have just seen it, or it's coming out very soon, depending on what order I put these videos in. Where I'm putting a solar panel fitted to the car, and I'll talk about it in that video. But I want to talk about clean energy. So there's been a lot of people who have been doing various inventions and tinkerings and stuff and saying, oh, it's free energy. It's not, it's clean energy. It's not free, there's still an exchange of energy going on there. You're converting one form of energy that we can't use into another form of energy that we can use in the form of electricity. And usually in, say, a coal power plant or a gas power plant or their variation thereof, it's converting the heat energy into momentum. So it converts, usually there's a boiler and it turns the water to steam. The steam then creates pressure, and the pressure then turns to turbine. The turbine then generates electricity, generally speaking. Now, those kinds of electricities are fading, essentially. We're trying to move away from them. It's slow, and there's a whole load of conspiracy crap that big oil don't want to move away, and the government's hiding it and all that there crap. And fucking maybe, I don't know. What I do know is it's going to run out regardless at some point. So if there's a big conspiracy to keep using fossil fuels and all the rest, fuck them. They're going to run out very soon. They're going to go bust. So slap it up them. But there is a form of cleaner energy in particular that we could change to very, very easily, but people don't want to, and that's nuclear energy. Now, a lot of people think of nuclear energy and think, oh no, there's loads of waste, loads of pollutants off that, and there isn't. As far as air pollution goes, so the only byproduct of nuclear power plant that goes into the air or into the atmosphere is steam. That's it. There is a waste product in the form of nuclear waste, so the spent uranium, is it uranium? Uranium-234? No. Fuck it. The radioactive material they use, anyway, that stuff. Once it's used and spent, it then has a massive half-life where it's still radioactive, so they need to dispose of that. But it's still cleaner than gas and coal and all the other variations thereof. So as far as a step, it would be a step towards the right direction, but they still have all the nuclear waste to deal with. Fucking chuck it into space or something, I don't know. But the biggest problem with people wanting nuclear energy, because I mean it's doable, the technology's there, it's just people don't want it because of Chernobyl. That's the main reason. Most people know about Chernobyl as soon as you mention nuclear energy, and if you Google nuclear energy, it's one of the top hits on YouTube, is Chernobyl. Excuse me, apologies, I have a cold, I just had to cut out me blowing my nose there. So yes, the biggest hit is Chernobyl, and a lot of people think, oh no, I don't want to have a nuclear explosion on my doorstep, and that's not how it works. Chernobyl was not a nuclear explosion as you would picture, a mushroom cloud and all that. It wasn't. It was essentially what you would call a dirty bomb. Now, a dirty bomb is an explosion that's been laced with radioactive material, so it has a radiation fallout effect, but it's still just a regular explosion. And the explosion that happened in Chernobyl could happen at any power plant. All that happened was a boiler or several boilers, I can't remember offhand, overpressurized and exploded. And that happened because they had a skeleton crew who weren't trained. So skeleton crew means they had the bare minimum people there, maybe even less, that were needed to run it from, I think, funding reasons possibly. And they weren't properly trained. And so whenever these issues started happening, they didn't know how to deal with them, and that caused an explosion. But I live right beside a power plant. I believe it's coal, and it could have the same problem. One of its boilers could explode, and it would be the same blast radius. The only caveat, the only difference between them is One has radioactive material in it, the other one doesn't. And that is an issue. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying, it's only a bit of radiation, it'll be fine. No, it contaminates land for ages. But the likelihood of it happening is as likely as any other power plant exploding in that way. And it hasn't happened. Not since Chernobyl in any major form that I'm aware of. Possibly in underdeveloped countries, maybe. But then again, that's down to training and skill set, which is technically training. I just made the same point twice. I don't know why, but yeah. So that's the main reason why people don't want to move to nuclear energy, and they're then trying to force solar and wind, and that's not a bad thing. Solar power, I think, has a great potential, because if you think of the amount of houses, maybe not in cities where it's skyscrapers, because that's obviously solar panels, like a couple of solar panels that you fit on top of a skyscraper aren't really going to benefit. And once you get below the sort of skyscraper level, the roof level of them, not a lot of sun gets in because it's blocked by all the fucking skyscrapers. But in suburban areas and sort of small towns and cities where there's lots of houses, that's a lot of roofs that you could put a solar panel on. My house has solar panels, and it's part of a government thing, so I get money back off my electricity bill. Essentially, it just goes back into the grid, and that's great. It's if every house had that, the amount of electricity we would need from coal and gas power plants would be significantly reduced, and that's a key point. I'm not saying that you need to get rid of gas and coal and oil power plants, because at the minute we just don't have anything to replace them with, apart from potentially nuclear. And we do have nuclear power plants that could take up the slack if need be, and it would then stop air pollution as much, but then you still have to deal with the radioactive material. But if every house had solar panels, if it was mandatory that any new house that's being built must have solar panels on it, fucking sold. You'll then have a surplus, because let's face it, during the day, most people are out working. They're not using their house for electricity. You're creating a surplus. That's stored somewhere, laughing. Now, you still need to obviously have somewhere to store it, so there need to be batteries and all that, but there's probably, I don't know enough about electricity generation from coal and oil power plants at the minute to know, but I would assume they probably have some storage capacity for the energy that they generate. I can't imagine it's used on a demand basis. It might be, I could be wrong, but I would have thought they would need to have some sort of buffer there. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on power, and Chernobyl was not a nuclear explosion.